The war came without warning. One moment the stars were still, the next fire bloomed across space. Earth's outer colonies didn't even get a distress call out before vanishing. No one knew who attacked first. No one cared. Ships burned. People screamed, and command was too slow to respond. Aiden was a technician on a civilian research ship. He wasn't trained to fight. His only job was to fix broken wires and calibrate scanners. But when the enemy fleet surrounded their vessel, there was nothing left to fix. The ship was pulled into their docking bay like a helpless fish caught in a net. He expected death, or worse. But when the enemy guards stormed the corridors, he didn't see monsters. He saw soldiers. And in the center of them stood her, a tall alien woman with silver skin, glowing red eyes, and an aura of command. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. The soldiers followed her like she was gravity itself. Her name was Shareya, commander of the Varellan warfront, a species unknown to Earth before the attack. She wore no armor, only a sleek suit of black fabric that shimmered like stars. Her voice was calm, but her eyes told stories of fire and war. She looked at Aiden not like an enemy, but like a question that needed an answer. He was dragged before her. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she said something strange. "You are not like the others. Your mind is sharp, curious." Aiden had no idea what she meant. He only knew that he was still alive, and the other crew were gone, taken, or worse. He was alone with a commander who should have killed him, but she didn't. She ordered him to be brought to her command chamber, alone. Her ship was massive. Alien technology glowed red and blue across every surface. Everything pulsed like it was alive. The air felt heavy but breathable. Aiden followed in silence, afraid to ask questions, more afraid of the answers. When they entered the command deck, Shareya turned to him. "Your people are stubborn, proud, but their weapons are ancient. Their minds are closed. You are different. You ask why. That makes you useful." He wanted to protest. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a spy. But something about her tone left no room for argument. She pointed to the burning hologram of Earth's defense fleet. "We have already cracked their encryption. But we don't know their instinct, their fear. You do. You will sit beside me and help me understand how your kind thinks. And in return, I will spare your planet's core cities." For now, Aiden didn't believe her. But what choice did he have? So he sat beside her, day after day, learning their systems, watching her lead. She didn't bark orders like human officers. She whispered them, and the ship obeyed. It was like she was part of the vessel. Her hands on the controls looked more like art than command. She didn't just control the fleet, she danced with it. He hated her, and yet he didn't. She never hurt him. She spoke to him with respect. She asked questions no human general ever did. About emotion, about loyalty, about fear. One night, as they watched another human station burn, she whispered, "I do not enjoy this, but war is all I have ever known." There was no joy in her tone, only sorrow. Aiden realized something then. She wasn't just a warrior. She was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of death. But too deep to stop. The fleet needed her. The war defined her. And now he was becoming a part of it. A strange part. The enemy beside her. The human who should have died days ago, now holding her secrets. He began to give advice. At first, small things. Which targets would demoralize Earth's forces fastest. How human leaders would react to certain tactics. She listened, and sometimes she didn't fire. Sometimes she pulled the fleet back. And he noticed, every time she did, her fingers trembled just slightly. The crew didn't trust him. They stared, whispered, but no one defied Shareya. She defended him, called him advisor, not prisoner, not tool. And in private, she asked about Earth, about music, about oceans. Things she had only seen in stolen files. Her voice softened when she asked, like she wasn't a commander anymore. Just a girl who had never seen rain. One night he found her watching old Earth videos. A child running through a field. Laughter. She didn't speak. Just sat there, eyes glowing faintly, lost in it. He didn't disturb her. He sat beside her. And for the first time, there was no war between them. But the galaxy did not stop burning. Every choice brought new consequences. Earth prepared counterstrikes. The Varellan Council grew impatient. And Aiden began to understand Shreya wasn't just controlling the enemy fleet. She was trying to stop it. From within, silently, carefully. And he was her last hope. The Council ship arrived without warning. It docked with Shreya's flagship. Like a blade slipping into a sheath. The soldiers stood at full attention. A cold silence spread through the corridors. Aiden felt it in the air. The tension was sharp, like something terrible was about to unfold. 3 council envoys stepped aboard, tall, pale, and wrapped in gold-threaded armor. Their eyes were cold as glass. They didn't nod. They didn't greet. They simply walked through the halls, inspecting everything with silent judgment. Shreya met them in the central command room, standing tall and calm. Aiden wasn't allowed to speak. He stood at her side, silent. The envoys looked at him with disgust, like he was some dirty animal. "You keep this human on your bridge?" one of them finally asked. "He is not a soldier. He is a tool. You are weakening us with softness." Shreya didn't flinch. Her voice was ice. "This human has saved more of your ships than your advisors ever could." They didn't like that. One envoy stepped closer, eyes narrowed. "You forget your place, fleet commander. The council leads, you obey." Aiden saw her jaw tighten. But she bowed slightly and said nothing. After they left, she stood still for a long time. Then she turned to Aiden and whispered, "They are vultures wearing crowns. They feast on victory, but know nothing of blood." Aiden saw it now. Shreya wasn't just fighting Earth. She was walking the knife's edge between war and rebellion. Her own people didn't trust her anymore. But she didn't step back. She continued to lead. She continued to protect. Not just him, but thousands of civilians who might have been lost if she hadn't held the missiles. The next battle came swiftly. Earth's forces had regrouped. They were smarter now, faster. They had learned from the first wave. Shreya didn't underestimate them. She let Aiden study their new formation. He pointed to a weak spot. She adjusted the attack pattern. A flank instead of a direct strike. It worked. The enemy fled instead of dying. But the council watched from orbit. They didn't want mercy. They wanted destruction. One envoy ordered a follow-up strike to kill the retreating ships. Shreya refused. "They are wounded. Let them carry their fear back. It will do more than vaporizing their bones." The envoy screamed in rage, but she stood firm. Aiden felt proud. And terrified. He knew the council wouldn't forget this. They saw mercy as weakness. And her growing bond with a human only made things worse. That night, in her private quarters, she sat silently, removing her gloves. Her hands trembled slightly. "They will come for me soon," she said softly. "They will call it treason. But I cannot be like them." He didn't know what to say. So he asked the only thing he could. "Why me? Why save me?" She looked at him, eyes glowing in the low red light. "Because you listened. Because you looked at me and didn't see a monster. Because when I burned your world, you still sat beside me instead of stabbing me in the back." Their bond grew stronger. Not through words, but through moments, shared silence. Trust under pressure. He no longer felt like a prisoner. He felt like a partner, her second mind in battle. Her quiet voice when the galaxy roared around them. They didn't speak of love. It wasn't needed. What they had was something deeper. Soon, other officers started to follow her example. They questioned orders. They chose capture over killing. They spoke to civilians before destroying cities. Quietly, a change moved through the fleet. Not a rebellion, not yet, but a new thought, a new way. One human had shown them that not every enemy must die, but the Council noticed. And they acted. One of Sharaya's ships was destroyed mid-journey. No enemy nearby. No distress call. Just gone. She didn't speak of it, but her face that day was like stone. Aiden stayed close. He didn't need to ask. He knew the war wasn't just outside anymore. It was coming from within. The final message came encrypted. A summon to the Council core. Immediate appearance required. No delay. Sharaya read it in silence. Then she turned to Aiden. They will strip me of command. Maybe worse. They fear what I'm becoming. What we are becoming. Aiden felt cold all over. Then don't go, he said. But she shook her head. If I run, they will kill my crew. They will call me traitor. If I go, I might still protect them. She stood up. Her shadow long in the glow of the bridge. You stay here. Whatever happens, you are not my prisoner. You are my witness. Remember everything. If they silence me, make sure someone knows why. Then she walked out, head high, alone toward the judgment that waited for her. The doors closed behind her. Aiden stood on the bridge, surrounded by silence. Her absence felt like gravity had shifted. The ship's officers looked to him, not for orders, but for comfort. None of them said it, but they all feared the same thing, that Sharaya wouldn't return. Hours passed, then a day. No message, no signal. The stars outside stayed the same, but inside the ship, everything felt colder. Aiden reviewed the systems, but there was no joy in his work. Every screen felt hollow without her presence beside it. Finally, a transmission arrived. It wasn't her voice. It was the Council's, cold, formal. They announced that Fleet Commander Sharaya had been removed from duty. No explanation. No trial. No location. She had vanished as if she never existed. Her name was erased from the fleet records. Aiden felt sick. The bridge crew stared at the floor. No one cried. Their kind didn't show grief like humans did. But Aiden could feel it in the way they moved. Slower. Heavier. Like something sacred had been stolen. No one spoke her name. It was dangerous to do so now, but Aiden wouldn't forget. He accessed hidden logs, backup files she had shown him, passwords she had trusted him with, her flight paths, her notes. He searched everything. Then he found it, an encrypted signal buried under old battle data. A faint distress beacon. Not from the Council base, but from a dead zone between systems. He knew it was her. The coordinates matched a patrol she once mentioned. It was a risky move, but he made it. He brought the ship offline, faked a power failure, and changed their course without alerting the command chain. Only her loyal crew helped, those who remembered her voice. Those who had once followed her without question. The journey was quiet. The space between stars felt colder than before. No other ships, no signs of life. Just drifting dust and old wreckage. Then they saw a broken vessel floating in silence. Not Council-made, not human, old, scarred, but alive. Barely, they approached slowly. Shields up. No response from the ship. Aiden led the boarding party himself. Inside, it was dark. Lights flickered. Air was thin. The corridors were silent except for the soft hum of dying power. Then they found her. Sharaya was strapped to a control chair, wires running through her arms. Her eyes were closed, skin pale, energy drained, but she was alive. Aiden rushed to her side. Her eyes opened slowly. "You came," she whispered, voice dry like dust. "I knew you would." He helped her up. She leaned on him, weak but still proud. "They tried to erase me," she said. "Tried to turn my mind into a command code, make me a machine. But they forgot one thing. I'm not built to obey. I'm built to think. They brought her back to the ship. The crew stared, then stood tall. One by one, they dropped to one knee. Aiden stood beside her as she took the captain's chair once more. She looked thinner, worn, but her eyes burned brighter than ever. She didn't waste time. The Council has declared war on change, she said. But change has already begun, and we will not stop it now. She activated the fleet channel. Her voice echoed across the stars. To all who hear me, I am not gone. I am not silenced. I am reborn. We fight not to conquer, but to end the fire that eats us from within. The message traveled fast. Other ships began to respond, quietly, coded. Signals of support. Of unity. She wasn't alone anymore. A new fleet was forming. One not of destruction, but of choice. They called her the Broken Flame. A fire that refused to go out. Aiden stood at her side as the ship powered forward. She looked at him and said, "They will hunt us now. They will send everything. But we are not running. We are moving forward, together." He nodded, not as a human, not as her prisoner, but as her partner. The stars outside blinked, unaware of the storm building beneath them. But on that ship, in that moment, something stronger than war was born. Hope. Asterisk. The rebellion spread like sparks in dry grass. Sharaya's message moved across the hidden channels of the fleet. Ships that once followed the Council in silence now questioned every command. Some joined openly, others sent coded support. But all eyes were turning to the Broken Flame. The Council declared her a traitor. They released new orders across all systems. Anyone helping her would be stripped of rank, hunted, and punished. But threats no longer worked like before. The galaxy had seen what loyalty to power brought: endless fire and cold commands. Now they wanted something different. Aiden worked with the crew day and night. He had learned their systems. He had earned their trust. He was still human, but they didn't treat him like an outsider. Not anymore. They called him Second Flame. He didn't know what it meant at first, but when he asked, a young officer said, "You lit the match that made her burn brighter." The new fleet didn't move to destroy. It moved to rescue. It intercepted battle zones and pulled survivors from both sides. It shut down weapon systems instead of launching missiles. It protected refugee ships. And people started to believe. Not just Virellans, but humans too. Civilians, colonists, even a few rogue Earth officers who had seen too much. Still, the enemy didn't sit still. The Council unleashed a new fleet, the Black Spiral. Elite warships built for one purpose: annihilation. No diplomacy, no warnings. Just silence, then fire. They burned one of the allied planets to the ground. No survivors. A signal was left behind: obey or vanish. Sharaya watched the footage with her hands clenched. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she stood and turned to the crew. "They have drawn their line. Now we draw ours. We meet them head on. We show them that the galaxy has already changed, and no fear will freeze it." A battle was planned. Not near Earth, not near Virellan space, but at the center of the Black Spiral's path. A dead zone of space full of broken satellites and forgotten wreckage. A graveyard. That's where they would stand, not to win, but to stop the fire from spreading further. As the fleet approached the coordinates, Aiden stood with her on the bridge. She was calm, but he could see the storm in her eyes. "This is where we make them choose," she said. "They can crush our ships, but not the idea. And they know it. That's why they fear us." He nodded. "They fear what they can't control." She smiled faintly. "Exactly. And nothing scares the Council more than a voice they cannot silence." The battle began before they reached full range. The Black Spiral launched drones, fast and deadly. Sharaya countered with jamming fields and sensor distortions. Aiden directed false signal bursts to draw them into traps. They lost 3 ships in the first hour. But they held, then. The spiral flagship appeared. A monster of black metal and sharp angles. Its cannon glowed with deadly energy. One blast could wipe out a city. Sharia stared at it through the viewscreen. "Their symbol of fear," she said. "Let's show them it means nothing." She launched a feint attack. 5 ships hit the edges, drawing fire. Aiden rerouted the data links and slipped a virus into the flagship's scanning system. It worked. For 10 seconds, their sensors went blind. That was all she needed. She gave the order. "Strike the core, then fall back. We don't need to kill them. We only need to prove we can." The hit landed. A direct blast to the spiral flagship's energy matrix. It didn't destroy the ship, but it cracked its shield. And in that moment, the rest of the fleet paused. The spiral had been touched, wounded, not invincible anymore. The message spread fast. Across ships, across planets, across systems, people saw what had happened. Not just the damage, but the defiance. One ship had faced the monster and made it bleed, and suddenly, silence was no longer safety. Silence was shame. The battle ended without a full victory. Sharia's fleet pulled back, damaged but alive. The spiral didn't chase. They retreated too, not out of fear but confusion. For the first time, they didn't understand what they were fighting against. It wasn't just ships. It was belief. Back. On the command deck, Aiden stood beside her once again. "You didn't break them," he said, "but you cracked their mask." She looked out at the stars. And that's where real change begins. The fleet limped toward the next system. Engines weak but hearts stronger than ever. The fleet arrived in the Marsa sector, a place once filled with life but now dark and silent. Abandoned mining colonies floated like empty bones. The crew repaired what they could, using broken parts from wrecks. The ships were wounded, but not finished, just like the people aboard them. Sharia moved through the decks daily. She helped the engineers. She listened to the crew. She spoke to the wounded. Her presence alone lifted them. She wasn't above them. She was among them. Her eyes no longer held only command. They held care. Aiden worked alongside her. His skills in human systems helped integrate old Earth tech into the Varellan ships. He didn't feel like a helper anymore. He felt like a bridge. The one thing connecting 2 worlds that once saw each other only through crosshairs. That night, the crew gathered in the hangar bay. They played old Earth music. Varellan light displays shimmered along the walls. Someone brought out preserved food from different planets. For a moment, the war was outside. Inside, there was laughter. There was unity. There was something new. Being born, Sharia and Aiden stood in the back, watching. She leaned close. "This is what they fear the most," she said. "Not weapons, not ships, but this. The sound of peace." But peace was fragile. Days later, a spy was caught in the lower engine room, not human. Not Varellan. A mercenary hired by the Council to sabotage their reactors. He carried explosives and a remote signal device. He almost succeeded. Almost. Sharia ordered his arrest, but not his execution. She questioned him herself. Aiden was there. The spy didn't scream. He didn't plead. He simply said, "You're making them afraid. That means they'll destroy you soon, all of you." His voice held no hate. Only certainty. That night, Aiden couldn't sleep. He sat in the observation deck, looking at the stars. Sharia joined him quietly. "He's right," Aiden said. "They'll come with everything they have now." She didn't deny it. "I know. But I'd rather die standing than live kneeling." The next morning, they received a transmission from Earth. It wasn't military. It was a civilian broadcast from a neutral channel. The message was short. A group of humans on Mars had started a protest. Holding banners with Sharia's symbol, they called for unity. For peace, for a future without war. Aiden showed it to her. She smiled slowly. "The spark has reached your people too," she said. "Now we are not just fighting for survival. We are fighting for something that can outlast us." But the time for battle was near again. A signal burst arrived from an old Varellan outpost. The black spiral was moving. A fleet of over 60 warships, not heading for Sharia. Not this time. They were heading for a human colony that had refused to evacuate. A mixed colony of humans and Varellans who now followed the broken flame. Sharia didn't hesitate. "We move now," she said. "This is not a battle of territory. This is a battle of truth. If we let them fall, the galaxy will believe we are weak. But if we stand, they will know we are one." The fleet was not ready. Shields were damaged, fuel was low, but no one refused. Not one voice spoke against the order. They moved together, fast and silent, toward the burning edge of space where the spiral waited. As they approached, Aiden stood at the front of the bridge. "They won't hold back," he said. "This time, they'll bring everything." Sharia placed her hand on his shoulder. "Then we show them everything we are." The spiral fleet was already in orbit. Missiles fell like meteors toward the colony below. Sharia ordered her ships between them and the surface. The first wave of fire hit their shields. Lights flickered. Alarms screamed. But the line held. Then came the assault. Fighters, drones, long-range plasma bursts. Sharia gave orders calmly. Aiden relayed attack patterns and countermeasures. The crew worked as one body. They didn't fight with rage. They fought with purpose. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the port side. One of their capital ships had been hit in its core. A hole tore through the middle, pulling metal and men into the void. Aiden gritted his teeth. "We're losing them," he said. "Not yet," Sharia replied. She gave the order to launch the Aurora, an experimental weapon system designed not to kill but to disable. It used high-energy magnetic pulses to shut down engines and systems. It was untested, dangerous, but it was their only chance. As the device charged, the fleet focused all shields forward. The spiral advanced in a tight formation, sure of victory. The moment they were in range, Sharia shouted, "Now!" The blast fired in a burst of blue light that raced across the battlefield like a wave of silence. Spiral ships stopped mid-flight. Systems collapsed, engines died. The battlefield froze in shock. And in that stillness, Sharia's voice echoed across every channel. "We are not your enemies. We are your future." Asterisk, the spiral fleet drifted like statues in space. Hundreds of ships, dark and powerless. The magnetic pulse had done its job. But it had also drained half of Sharia's systems. They had one shot, one moment to act. One chance to decide how this war would end. Aiden looked at her. "We could finish them," he said. "Strike now, and no one would stop us." She stood silent for a moment. Then she said, "That is how they think, not how we lead." She opened the fleet-wide channel and sent a message. "This is Fleet Commander Sharia of the Broken Flame. Your ships are disabled, but your lives are not in danger. I offer peace, not surrender. Power down your weapons. Send no more fire, and you will not be harmed." There was no reply at first. Then, one by one, spiral ships began to signal compliance. Their crews sent short bursts of light to confirm. They powered down their weapons. They backed away. They had not been broken. They had been given a choice. For the first time in the war, the silence meant something new. Not fear, not retreat, but understanding. Sharia stood at the center of it all, not as a warlord, but as a symbol. One who had bled and burned and still chosen not to destroy. Back on the bridge, the crew watched the enemy fleet scatter into surrender. There were no cheers, no wild celebrations. Just quiet relief. The kind that came after holding your breath too long and finally being able to breathe. Aiden walked with her through the quiet halls later that night. They passed wounded soldiers, sleeping technicians, dim lights. No banners, no medals. Just people who had survived something that should have ended them. He asked her, "What now?" She stopped walking and looked out the viewing window. Stars blinked in the distance. "Now we rebuild," she said. "Not just ships, but everything. Trust, bridges, a galaxy that forgot how to listen." Messages began arriving, first from nearby colonies, then outer systems, Varellans, humans, even other species who had stayed hidden during the conflict. They sent words of support. They offered resources. They asked to join the flame. Shareya didn't make herself a queen. She didn't claim the throne. She formed a council, not of warriors but of thinkers, engineers, doctors, historians, survivors. And yes, one human advisor named Aiden, who spoke for both sides. He didn't wear armor. He didn't hold a weapon. But when he spoke, people listened. Because they knew he had stood beside her not just in battle, but in belief. And belief was what had changed everything. The old Varellan Council collapsed weeks later. Their commands were ignored. Their last stronghold surrendered without resistance. Without fear to feed them, their power crumbled like rusted steel. Earth, too, began to shift. The military leaders who had once screamed for war now struggled to justify it. The people remembered the protests, the message, the face of the alien woman who spared their soldiers and protected their people. Peace treaties were signed not with demands, but with conversations, shared goals, joint projects. Refugees were returned. Broken cities were rebuilt with mixed hands. The flame that had once burned to destroy now warmed a future that felt possible. One evening, under the open stars on a garden moon, Shareya and Aiden stood together. The sky above them was alive with color. Ships moved like stars. Lights blinked. With purpose, not war. Children from different species played in the distance. She turned to him. "I never thought I would live to see this. I was raised to fight, trained to conquer. But this," she looked at the stars again. "This is worth more than every battle I ever won." He smiled at her. "You didn't win the war. You changed it." She looked at him for a long time, then said, "No, we did." And in that quiet moment, no weapons were drawn. No ships fired. No orders shouted. Just two souls, once enemies, now partners, staring at a galaxy finally learning how to heal. Together, they had done the impossible, not by force, but by choosing something stronger, mercy.